Yeah, I was actually going
And it,
to come in, but I'm sort of sniffly today, and I don't know if it's my allergies or not, but I didn't want to infect anyone if I have something.
Oh, well, I don't care about you guys and I'm sniffling too, so it's allergies though.
So, okay, we'll go ahead and get started then. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, called to order at 1 p.m. And I'll go ahead and do roll call. Terry is here. Andrew Christopher.
here.
Joel Ireland.
Here.
Jan Mulder.
Here.
Ricky Riojas.
Here.
And Commissioner McDonald is not here. Savannah McDonald. Okay, so item 2 is approval of the legal action report / minutes for the meeting of May 9th, 2024. Commissioner Mulder pointed out that that there's still a comment in the version that got posted. I guess whoever posted it didn't see my comment that please read the comment and then delete it before you post it. So, but I think it's not the full track changes version because that would have been frightening. So I think we can go ahead and vote on it, don't you, Joni?
I think you're fine to vote on it and we'll correct the posting of it. I think Michael and I both sent it to be posted, so we'll just make sure that that comment is gone and repost it.
Okay, should the motion say approve as submitted except remove the one comment bubble or something?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so who would like to make a motion to approve with that?
This is Ricky. I'll motion to approve with the removal of that's in there.
Okay, with removal of comment, of marginal comment or whatever it's called. Okay, and who will second?
Second, Joel.
Okay, thanks, Joel. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, I will go ahead and call roll. Terry says aye. Ricky? I didn't hear you, Ricky.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
Now I can. Now I can.
Okay, aye.
Okay, great. Jan?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
And Andrew?
Aye.
Great, they pass 5-0. Thanks a lot. Okay, item 3 is historic preservation zone review cases that we review under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0 historic district design guidelines and the revised Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines. Case 3A is SD 0524-00047 at 1475 North Oracle Road. This is for rehabilitation of the Tucson House. It's a full review in the Miracle Mile National Register Historic District. It's a contributing resource, and we use the rehabilitation standards. Jody, would you like to give background, please?
Yes, so this is a project you'll recall that you saw several months ago for a courtesy review. It is in the process of receiving historic tax credits, so it's getting reviewed not only from you, it is getting reviewed from the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. You are reviewing it as it relates to the city's administrative directive for city-owned properties. And you are also reviewing it as it relates to the current programmatic agreement with HUD that requires review of properties that are going through this process, historic properties going through this process. I don't know if Johanna or Charles or Zoe wants to also speak on the property. Oh, Johanna has unmuted. She is the Deputy Director for HCD.
Hi, thanks, Jody. Just to add to Jody's background, many of you may be aware The Tucson House is the cornerstone project of the city's $50 million Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. It is a much needed $182 million redevelopment that includes the total replacement of mechanical systems, plumbing systems, electrical systems, existing elevators, major upgrades to site and building security, interior and exterior amenities spaces, total renovation of all apartments. And like Jody said, we're working with the State Historic Preservation Office on historic tax credits to ensure the preservation and history of Tucson House and its significance in our community while still allowing for modernization and total renovation. And with that, I will turn it over to Charles for his presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Charles Pfeiffer, project architect with Poster Merton McDonald for the Tucson House project. It's good to see everyone again. It's been a couple of months and we've made some good progress on the building documentation. I have a presentation to share. Let me see if that will work. Great.
It should, your co-host.
Okay. Okay, can we confirm that my screen is visible and that is a Tucson House related slideshow?
Yes.
Yes, I can see it.
Great. I will go ahead and presentation-ify that. Okay. So I believe this entire group heard the spiel last time, so I'm going to do the micro miniature version just to give a reintroduction to the building here. Just some historic flavor images to get started of the building circa its construction in 1963-64 and shortly thereafter. I think an important thing to note for this building is that it has an extensive and well-documented history, starting as a luxury housing building in the early 60s, and then suffering from the relocation of vehicular traffic to the interstate when it came in the mid-70s, led to a decline in the building, and it was ultimately defaulted to HUD and then ultimately City of Tucson low-income housing, which it has been ever since that time. Subsequent to the building's construction, it has gone through a number of major renovations. Around the time when it was converted to low-income housing, fire sprinklers were added, as well as a number of low ceilings throughout the entire building. And then in 1997, a major kitchen and bath remodel, as well as a handful of systems upgrades were done to the building, as well as the removal of the original glazing system for the north and south facades, which was originally really a full glass system. Was replaced with a EFIS and sliding door system that we'll see here in a minute. And then that was the last major renovation. And then in the 2000s, there were mechanical system upgrades, leading us to today, which is the Choice Neighborhood's total renovation of the building. I think something that's useful to note as part of this is that the exterior of the building has not been changed much throughout that entire history, with the exception of that change of the glazing on the typical units. The building was nominated for the Miracle Mile District in 2012. And so this is an important time basis that we use with relation to this building. And this, as we saw, is after the change of the glazing at the typical units. As Jody and Johanna mentioned, we are seeking a historic tax credit. The part one of that has already been approved by the National Park Service. And so that's great news. And that's happened subsequent to our last meeting. And the part two is currently in evaluation by Susan Lawson with the SHPO. And we have received initial comments from her on our submittal, which is substantially similar to what we're looking at today, with no major issues. So I think that that's an important note, is that we had a great meeting with Susan last week, and we are picking up a few small items, particularly related to documentation, and then we're going to resubmit, and then we'll begin the process of submitting to the national parks. Okay, so that's the preamble. So our work to the building, here we can see the building in its original form in the 60s and circa a few months ago. Here, just to really serve to orient everybody to the work. So I'm going to get started discussing what we're doing on the site. And so the site, as the building is in need of extensive upgrade. And so this is our site demolition plan, which I'm not going to speak to other than if there are any questions specifically related to anything you're doing. But I think that the new work site plan tells an important story for our work on the site. So one of the things that we are doing, which is a major priority for the project, is to increase the security of the building. So for many years, and particularly in the last 5 years, safety and security within the building has been at the top of mind of the residents of the building. And through the process that we're undertaking, those same residents will continue to live in this building or will be relocated to and then back to the building potentially. And so we've had a lot of great meetings, and we have another one today with our resident group, and the safety and security of the site and the building is of paramount importance to the people who live in the building. And so I'm going to actually jump back over to the demo plan here for a second, just so we can see the existing configuration of the parking area here, which is all one single parking area, which is generally fenced at the perimeter, but not at the entries. And guest parking come into the site, and it would have unfettered access to the full site. And so one of the major things that we are doing to the site is to reconfigure the parking so that there is a guest parking area that exists outside of a vehicular gate before you come into the balance of the site, so that we will be able to have security control of the entire perimeter of the building and prevent some of the long-standing problems that exist within the building itself. Okay, and so to that end, we're going to be fully replacing all of the asphalt. For the most part, though, we are maintaining all important elements of the site design. There are relatively important concrete covers for parking located at the locations highlighted in yellow, as well as a concrete pedestrian cover. I'm going to jump out so I can zoom in here just a little bit so we can see this photo. So here you can see the character of these thin slab covers for both parking, porte cochere, and then also the parking and pedestrian are the same design. And so those we will be maintaining and cleaning and rehabilitating fully and restoring lighting along there, again, as part of a safety upgrade. For the rest of the perimeter of the site, the north is an existing chain link fence that is shared with the Southwest Key facility to the north that we will be repairing but not replacing. The west is a chain link fence that we'll be replacing with a chain link fence of slightly different character in that the current version is sort of scabbed together out of multiple pieces and is a security concern presently. So we're going to be installing a slightly taller, more ordered fence along that perimeter here, as well as improving the gates connecting currently to the park to the west, and then also the vehicular gate here at the south. Within the site itself, I'm going to jump over to our landscape plan. Here we are maintaining important plantings such as the palm trees at this fountain area, and several other plantings where we can, particularly trees in the immediate vicinity that we see here on the north of the building and the south, but we are also supplementing and upgrading the plantings throughout, as well as including new plantings within the parking lot to meet the parking shade requirements and to improve the appearance of the site. Jumping back over here briefly. The site has several zones, I think, that deserve a little bit of additional attention here. And so I have some enlarged plans for us to review. The first is the historic fountain area here at the north entry of the building. So here you can see what was formerly the fountain, as well as the porte cochere, and then the original plan of the fountain. And you can see here that components of this remain presently. Our plan is that we are going to restore the geometry of the fountain without bringing it back into service as a fountain. So curbs that are currently missing that would have defined the edges of the fountain will be restored in their exact original location, as will this concrete panel or bridge element, which is sort of reflected in a contemporary element that is going to be replaced with one that meets the original design and sort of floating bridge-like status over the top of our new fountain area. And so taking a look, oops, I thought I had the fountain. So we'll be, in lieu of water, this will be richly planted, just sort of taking into account the modern day sort of infeasibility of fountains, both from a operational and then also a water use perspective, is that we will be essentially remembering this fountain through a more lush planting and celebratory planting at the location of the former fountain. Okay, so that's the fountain area. And I guess, let me know if I should just keep steamrolling through or if I should pause periodically. Is there a preference?
I think you're fine. I mean, folks could, what do you think, commissioners?
I do just have a quick question, but I don't know if it'll be covered. It's about the gates.
Sure.
Are you touch on that again?
Well, probably not. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so you were talking about that there's gonna be a chain link fence and then there's those particularly on the west side, the gates will walk in. Are those also gonna be chain link or are they a different type of material?
No, these gates are, let's see. I did grab a view of one of those. I just need to figure out where it is that I placed it.
I think
here.
it's on the bottom of this sheet, Charles.
Oh yeah, there it is. Sorry, it's yes. My glasses are on the top of my forehead. So this will be a panelized gate and fence that will have a welded wire fabric material that will be installed in a panelized fashion, which is sort of a contemporary addition to the site generally. There are on the site presently, I'm actually going to jump way ahead. There is a material that is used sort of throughout, which is called armor weave, which is sort of a perforated and indented type of panel, which has a somewhat of a linear read to it by the time that you take into consideration sort of the ovoid shapes on it. And so we will be using a sort of a rectangular format welded wire, not exactly as an homage, but that's the intent for those gates.
And are the current gates 7 feet tall, or are you raising them up to be 7 feet tall?
So the present site has, whoops, it's definitely not the plan I intended to go to, has an existing, ignore this little note right here, has an existing vehicle gate at this location, and which is just chain link. And there is a chain link fence at this, gate at this location, but there is currently no fence or gate at all in the vicinity where we are adding this gate to separate both the building from the outside world as well as from the guest parking area. So that this is a new addition, though it is in line with a current fence line that exists. You can see right here underneath this pedestrian cover, there is an existing fence that we will be sort of adjoining to with our new fence and gate.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I just to follow on, I have a related question. So all the new fencing is the same as what you showed on the west side?
The new fencing typically meets this design where it's a panelized 4-foot welded wire system. With the exception of the far west, which is essentially a replacement, or not, it is a replacement effectively in kind of an existing chain link fence that exists all the way along here. But replacing it totally. It currently exists. Sorry, I don't immediately have a picture of this at my fingertips, but this particular fence goes all the way up to the bottom of the parking structure, which is approximately 9 feet here. And so we're going to be installing a replacement chain link fence at that same height, such that it cannot be climbed, as this is particularly a security issue, as there's a lot of activity, let's say, that goes on at that park. And so we are replacing in kind this fence.
Okay, are there other questions before Charles continues? Okay, go ahead, Charles.
Great, thank you guys for your questions. Okay, so another area that is receiving an upgrade to the site is what we are calling the quarry. And it is an area that currently is just a recess. So up at this level here connects at the level 1, and then this is a recessed area that connects to the basement, so the basement has access to light. All along sort of this whole zone here is this sunken area. And so we are proposing just what is currently a pit filled with crushed rock with a handful of small plantings will be utilized as sort of an amenity barbecue area, a supplemental entrance to HCD offices that will be taking place within the building, as well as what we would call almost a stealth playground, which would have this element here, which is a top track, and then let's say naturalistic play surfaces, such as you may have seen, which would be either play climbing rocks or tree elements, but intended, as this is a senior facility, really to be something that when you look at it, it's not a typical playground, that it is sort of a just a nice outside environment with some aspects that can be used by visiting children. Okay. So there is a swimming pool at the building, and here on the lower left, we can see the original view of that pool. And note that the chain link fence that is currently extant is the original at the top here. You can see it here in this current day photo, and we'll be maintaining that exactly as it is. For the pool, we will be essentially restoring it in kind. It'll be replastered, retiled, new machine equipment, new cool deck material, same type, resloped in order to allow for proper drainage, both of the pool and then for any incidental rainwater that might arrive will be piped out of the area. We will be installing a gate and fence along this line that is the same character that we saw of that panelized material previously. which will meet the requirements for a pool fence at this location. And then it is worth noting that sort of at these two locations here, there are existing concrete covers as well, just the same as the ones on the front, which will be restored in the same manner, thoroughly cleaned, and then as needed, patched and recoated. Then I will jump back over here to orient us. So we can see the building is here. Just to highlight our building, the pool is here. And now we're going to take a quick look at the exterior here at the north area. Whoops, we'll scan much too far and get confused. So this area is being zoned as per how it was historically, which is that there is a planted area with essentially a usable surface underneath trees here. And then there is amenity gaming type areas here. Historically, there was shuffleboard and other activities at this location. So we've taken that same zoning in order to provide new outdoor amenities, including a sort of permanent cornhole setup, as well as a ping pong table at this location. So sort of taking the historic zoning to provide new amenities immediately outside the building at this location. And the fun part of the site is over, and now we're going to go ahead and look at the trash and mechanical areas. So after meeting with environmental services about the building, it was determined that the existing trash pickup situation at the south side of the building is both substandard and dangerous for the people who pick up the garbage, which is that the current condition is that this wall at this location is about here, and then the compactor is over by about that same amount, and it's so close that you actually cannot get around your truck when they back in. And so it creates a dangerous situation where they actually have to physically climb over the top of their truck and then down onto the compactor. And then so for that reason, we have adjusted the wall over. And so this is the same area that we were, oops, excuse me 1 second, that we were just looking at here, where you can see this is the new extent of the wall in this area. And that is primarily to give a safe condition for our environmental services folks there. And then also of note at this area, we will be flattening out what is currently a dangerous and substandard loading dock, so that all of this will now sort of be sloped at grade without an actual sunken dock. And we'll be providing a dock leveler. We are sort of bringing into code recyclable and roll-off dumpster pickup here at the far west of this area. And we've met with ES, and they're quite happy with this arrangement, as the current situation is they have to back their truck into Oracle, which is something that happens not in very many locations. And they're very happy to have now a proper turnaround at this location. Okay, so that's the last part about the work that's going on the site, and I'm going to jump over the building. So it might be a good time if anyone has any additional questions on the site before we move forward.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Hello?
No, thorough. Nice.
I just have one comment. I don't know whether to put it in here or later, but just in regards to the fountain.
Yes.
Has there been any thought, or is it possible to just have something somewhere where, I'm assuming somewhere maybe in the lobby, you're kind of commemorating what the building used to be like, and some of those great old photos and things, that something that just acknowledges, whether it's a plaque there or something inside that just says, you know, we've tried to honor the configuration of the fountain, but there used to be a fountain here. And blah, blah, blah.
Sure. Yeah, I think that our overall interior design strategy is right on par with what you're describing there. So as this is the choice, I'm not finger quotes, choice to emphasize that neighborhoods grant. One of the very important parts of it is giving the residents sort of a degree of choice in the work that we're doing. And so we are working for the interior design of the building on a number of different options, one of which is sort of really leaning into the historic photos, aerial photos and everything that we have within the building. We're also looking at doing a miniature museum that would describe sort of the past history of the building. And I'm not 100% sure I'll be able to get it, but I actually have I know the location of and the architect who made the original model, architectural model for the building. And he had said that he might be interested in sort of allowing it to become part of this mini museum within the building. And so it's a very high priority for us, I think, to display that. And I think that that's a great point about the fountain as well, sort of describing what's going on, since it might not be clear.
Thank you. Yeah, it just seems like it'd be nice for people to kind of know if they just kind of go in cold and don't realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else before Charles goes on? Okay.
Yeah, this is Andrew. I just have
Okay.
one question. Oh, sorry. I think the audio has some delay. On the east side of the site, or on the building, there's a concrete canopy, and it looks like currently there's kind of a fence like running down the middle of that walkway. Can you explain what's going on there and if you guys are doing anything with that?
Yes, that would be this one here. So this is the pedestrian walkway coming in off of Oracle. So there's no fence. Actually, so this is a good time to note that one of the aspects of the part one is that the NPS agreed that the commercial building on this site is not considered contributing to the district. And so it is possible that this portion of the site may be developed at some future time. Those plans are not currently known. And so the fence that exists here presently will remain. It will be rehabilitated and will remain. And then as will sort of any fencing in this location, sort of with the understanding that probably at some future date, there may be coordination needed just related to any future development of this parcel.
Okay, so that walkway isn't usable as a walkway as it is right now.
Oh no, it for sure is. I guess the walkway.
Oh, okay.
This line, so, excuse me, this line is actually over here. So yes, all aspects, all parts of this will remain usable, and this is the way to get in. And so we will be providing a person gate at this location here. So to come in from Oracle, the way that you come in is via this walkway. Yes.
And the fence
Okay,
that's
thanks.
under the canopy, that's shown under the canopy, is existing.
Right.
Currently, it's that same armor weave texture as the railings, but it's taller.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it was just a little confusing looking at it in street view, like what was happening there. So
Yeah, it is set back so you can make use of this.
okay, thanks.
Great.
Okay. Anyone else? And we will have time for questions when the presentation, if something comes up as Charles is finishing. So go ahead.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the building at this time. So more or less in the same way as the site, included in here for just review, if desired, is our demolition elevation. I think that this is a good way to see some of the work that we are doing. And so our work can really be summarized as in-kind replacement of aluminum systems where they are either not up to current environmental code or are in a condition that needs to be replaced, condition or potentially configuration. And so we see here up at level 17 will be a total replacement of the aluminum system. And you can see the current configuration of that, and we will be matching that configuration exactly, except with a insulated glazing aluminum system. We are able to match the profiling on that material, fortunately. And then looks like my line weights maybe had a problem, but we are replacing all of the sliding doors that you see here. So I'll highlight one as a for instance. On both the north and the south facades of the building in their totality with in-kind replacement, with one exception that I'll go through when I reach the main portion of the elevation. And then sort of here and there, replacement in kind, either of just glazing or glazing and aluminum. And it is an aluminum system which can be matched with today's system. So it is truly an in-kind replacement, sort of at locations in the basement and at level 1 here. We are removing and replacing all mechanical equipment for the building. And for the most part, we are reducing the amount of equipment that will be on the roof. And I'll cover that in a second. In fact, I think I'm actually just going to jump through straight over to my new elevations here to highlight this work. So we've discussed level 17, that will be an in-kind replacement. The historic windows, which are these strips that we see here, are to remain. They will have limiters installed on them so that they cannot be opened further than 4 inches, but that will not have any sort of visual impact on the building inside or out. As stated, we're replacing on the north elevation, which is the entry and primary elevation of the building. We are purely replacing those sliders in kind. And then I have a couple of things that we should take a quick look at here. An enlarged elevation of the typical condition, and then down here, a view of the entry to the building. And so this is essentially a restoration to the original appearance. We will be repairing the existing very small scrap of marble that exists still on the outside, cleaning this existing stainless steel panel to restore it to its original appearance, and removing the, let's call them automated sliding entrance doors in favor of a new aluminum door, which will match the configuration of the doors that were originally installed, which you can actually see here with our nautical gentleman holding open the door. So this is that original view there of that system. And then we talked about the work that we're doing inside the building. I assume we're probably going to run out of time, so I'll skip that for now. But we are removing a door that was installed sort of improperly at this location and restoring this to the historic configuration of this glazing on the main entrance. And now I'm really going to quickly talk about really what is the most major work that we're doing to the outside of the building, which is the typical unit balcony work. And so this is that view that we have seen. And what we are primarily doing is that we are repainting the ephes. We are restoring the door, replacing the door in kind with a matching aluminum frame slider, just as the currently installed doors are, and repainting these railings. One of the big scopes of work that we are doing is that we are changing the mechanical system. So we are installing a new split system that has an outside component on the balcony. But that has been sort of pre-vetted through both our previous conversation and SHPO and everyone that we talked to, that is held beneath the line of the guardrail system, which is substantially opaque from the ground level, such that this work is concealed. We have also just very recently, there will be any venting that needs to take place for each unit will be taken down the wall and to the same location, so that from any vista, that all of this new work that we're doing here will be concealed behind this guard. Other work that we're doing here that is described in the elevations, but sort of easier to see in this image, is we are raking and replacing sealant and or mortar where it exists at these existing non-structural precast panels, as well as cleaning and resealing the EFIS system. And so that's one balcony, of course, but when we go back, the building is predominantly those balconies just repeated 400 times. And so there will be no work to the window bays and the work that I just described to the balcony bays. That's for the north side. For the south side, there is a little bit of extra work that will be done, which occur in these two blue stripes that I've identified here. And that is for the reason that the HUD greatly prefers one-bedroom units to studios. And this building was predominantly studio units historically. And so to make the project work, we are combining 3 studios into 2 one-bedroom units at 2 stacks. So this stack that I just highlighted right here used to be 3 studios wide, as was this. And that now that is being combined into a single, or excuse me, into 2 one-bedroom units, as you can see here. And so that has created a situation with the balcony, which is that it is now shared between 2 and the existing window unit does not work. And so the solution to that is as shown here, which is using the exact same dimensions as the sliding door. We are providing a split finished aluminum system. And so what we see here in white will be a clear anodized perimeter and center mullion, which exactly match the location and configuration of the typical sliding door. And then everything else in this unit will be dark bronze or glass. And so that is to say that the door jamb, as well as the door itself, will be dark bronze anodized, such that when you pull back, and I'm not saying you have to squint at it in person, but when you, let's just say, squint at this drawing here, I should probably zoom in on that. That's probably very tiny for you. The intent is that the overall visual appearance is matching exactly the visible portion of that window unit. Okay. And then there's just a few other items that are, I think, worthy of discussing here today. We are installing a new laundry room, or a laundry room at a location where it was not previously. And so for that, we are installing color-matched louvers for air intake, as well as color-matched louvers for exhaust. And that occurs here on what is the very back side of the building, sort of above one of the both sort of the trash, and then a little bit into that southern amenity use area there. Oh, go ahead. This might be a good time to stop on those 2 particular topics, as that's sort of kind of the major work that's going on to the outside of the buildings.
But it came back on. It's just our screen shut off, but it came back on, so we're good.
Oh, wait, what happened?
The screen shut off, but then it came back on. So
Okay. Do I need to repeat any part of that?
No.
Or
no,
okay.
we saw it.
This is Joel. I have a question.
Go ahead.
You were speaking about where this area where 3 efficiencies were turned into 2 one-bedroom apartments.
Yes.
And what is, I'm a little confused. What is that green portion?
Oh, yeah. In this case, we are also installing our primary electrical room here. And so this is irrelevant to this conversation, but or in part, the way that this building is being renovated is going to be phased from the top down. And so the initial phase is going to be 4 floors at a time, and it's sort of going to march down like this. But as we switch all of our services over, we needed a location for our electrical room. And so we are taking this stack along with that offline all at once. And so that is this unit. And so we will be able to run our new electrical conduit vertically in the location of this green block here.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just a little, I didn't understand. And then can you, the door situation,
Yes.
where do those, can you point on the chart where the doors will be?
Yes. So on the elevation, these doors are at the blue locations that you see, these blue stripes. So there's two.
Okay, they're not
runs
windows.
I'll jump really quickly over to the floor plan here. So you can see they are occurring at this location and at this,
okay, I
where we've
see.
done that same move on the south.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yep.
What is the total number of reduction in units for this?
I believe the current number of units is 408 or 409, and we are going down to 358.
Okay, and the laundry room is taking up what is now existing as 2 units?
Yes. On the first floor and basement, we are removing all. So what you see here, this is the first floor. So the entirety of dwelling units are being removed from the first floor. This is a user group that has extensive needs. And so one of the things that we're providing at the first floor is permanent supportive services, which you can see over here in this pink. And so these would be caseworkers for the residents who live within this building very specifically. But then also this darker pink color is for residents as well, but it's what we would call visiting agencies. So for instance, PAC may come in and do an animal shot clinic one day in here, or a dentist may come in, for instance, into these various spaces. But for those reasons, and then also sort of modern postal requirements, property management requirements, this floor is being turned from residential to building operations and amenity space.
And are you having to make large changes in the layout, like in terms of like building walls or demolishing walls from this? Because it seems like in the other, you're splitting the 3 or combining the 3 rooms into 2 rooms. There's really not much additional construction that you have to do. Is that different on this first floor?
Yes. So the way that we are treating the interior of the building from a historic perspective, which is the purview of NPS, and they care deeply about that, is that we are respecting the original corridor openings in their locations. So we are essentially restoring the lobby to its original design. So we're either leaving it alone or restoring it if it is a public area. And so the lobby and the corridors are considered to be public areas where we are making limited changes, or we are very clearly signaling any changes. And so an example of that, actually, let me do a better example, just clearer, would be the entrance to this permanent supportive services area. We are very clearly signaling that this is a new opening by stepping it back. And that's where we're starting to put in more glass. But for instance, where there was a historic door that's no longer needed here, we are going to leave that in place and we're going to seal it up, essentially. So you'll be able to reference what the original layout of the lobby was and then clearly delineate where we've made new openings. So for example, these 2 here. So anything we do in the hallway is announced via this setback, just like this. And then to fully answer your question, the interior configuration of this is completely and totally different than the current one. And it's a total reconfiguration outside of the actual corridors.
I will say though, we are trying to maintain demising walls for the most part. So you can see in the support, like the dark pink supportive services bays, we have 3 different, 3 different spaces that each have the demising wall of an original unit. So In locations where it makes sense, we are like respecting that unit kind of module.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay. So last up, I think here really quick is our east and west elevations. And for the most part, for the brick, we are doing no work. The brick is fortunately in great shape everywhere. The one location where we are making a change to the exterior of the building is at this location up here on the penthouse of the building, where we need to add a new louver in order to make the new mechanical system operate. And so I will share this view of that, which is that here's the location of that louver presenting on what is considered by SHPO to be a secondary, if there is a secondary vista of this particular building here. But again, that will be color matched to the existing brick at that location. So that, and then I think an important thing to note is that the historic sign that reads Tucson House here, iconic for sure in town. We're going to be restoring this, and we'll also be bringing it back into lighted functionality. So we'll be providing multiple sets of lighting within it. So hopefully it'll last for a long time, is that we'll be able to sort of switch over when one comes out, since this is, to say the least, not easy to access and is expensive to access. So we're doing the best that we can to make sure that it will be in service for a long time in a lighted condition. Let's see. The last thing that I want to mention here today is rooftop equipment. And so I've highlighted here in yellow each piece of rooftop equipment that we will have. And so here's the existing condition. It is an unscreened condition with, you can see here, equipment at this location and the equipment here. We are locating equipment in the same areas. For the most part, we are going to be at about the same level of equipment. It'll be different types of equipment, but no taller, and sort of co-located in the same zones. Last time we discussed whether or not we were going to be screening this, and we had shown a screen. It is the preference of SHPO not to screen this material per Susan, and we are in agreement since sort of subsequent to previous discussions, our quantity of equipment has reduced such that we feel that it does not have a major impact on the feel of the massing of the building, even at long distance vistas onto the building itself. Okay, and then very last of all is our building coloration. And so this is very much in progress. And so I've included this slide really just to show some of our thoughts. But as this is a high profile building and also part of the choice neighborhoods process, this choice is being considered by parties outside of our immediate group. And so we have information from the city manager's office that there's a desire to maintain a multiple colored configuration for these colors. Approximately 3 to 5 colors is what we heard. And so our plan for this is that we are going to, and I think we've eliminated some of these. This is was shared with our team, is that we will be producing a final selection of a few different sets of colors that will ultimately go to the resident group for their input. And then ultimately, per the city manager, it will also need to go to the neighborhood association. And so we shared this information with Susan, and her preference, I think, was for either a restoration of the existing, which is essentially what you would see here, or a restoration of the historic, which is what you would see here with a single color. And so I'm just being just open that we have in some cases, conflicting desires from the various groups that are to be consulted here. And so Susan was going to specifically go talk to NPS about this. And so I think for the purpose of this conversation, the overall building coloration needs to be considered pending, even if sort of the rest of this review is final.
Yeah, so
be
Charles,
curious.
Susan liked more of the original colors. I mean, not the variety of colors.
Yes, her initial result, sorry, I just drew a tiny little arrow, were these two options. But really sort of both of them are at odds with the desires of the city manager's office, as we understand it. And of course, we haven't had the chance to sort of wash back to the city manager's office. And I think what would be useful for us would be to sort of gather any additional commentary that we may have on this, so that we understand sort of the opinions and thoughts of all relevant parties today.
But who's the ultimate decider? I mean, if the Park Service and Chippo say something, and it's important to get this, the tax credits, right?
Well,
Yeah, sorry,
Johanna-
Charles, I'll hop in here.
Yes, thank you.
Phone a friend. Yeah, so yes, the city manager's office expressed preferences, and the city will defer to NPS and Chippo on what they feel is necessary for the tax credits. We're not worried about that. It won't end up being in conflict with what we need to do for NPS or for Chippo. That said, we do have preferences, and we do want to engage the community around those things, since this is really the only external thing we can engage the community on, and the only thing that we are changing on, more or less, on the outside of the building.
So what is your all's preference? This multicolored, the rainbow look?
Yeah, I mean, multicolored, yes. I have my own preference. The city manager's office did not express any preference for what colors they are, but the variegation in colors is meaningful to them. It is a very big building. And so I think that was important, just in terms of creating some character in the space. And I think that there's definitely an opportunity here to, you know, pick colors that are meaningful both historically and to the community, in a way that will allow us to engage people. I personally prefer the multicolored to the multi-shades of blue. And as the sort of city's project manager on this project, I will tell you that if that is what Chippo and NPS want, then you know, that is what we will do to get the historic tax credits.
Okay, just curious about that. So let's quickly go around the table and see who has questions. Who wants to start?
That's tricky. On this page that's still on the screen, oh, now it's switched.
Yep,
The
sorry.
one with the color options. What year was the building paint in those current shades of like the yellow, green, and blue?
1997.
Okay. And my other question too is regarding, so if like Chippo is the ultimate decider and NPS and like what they want, what they get, if the community picks one of these other options, like they have 4 options and they pick option number 3, do you have plans to mitigate that in terms of like you've done this community outreach, but
Tagging back in. I will say that the way it works with, you know, Chippo and NPS is, you know, we are working with them to create the plan that then we will take to the community. And so we're not going to ultimately provide them options that we can't implement. So we will make sure that we adjust appropriately before we engage the community.
okay, thank you. I mean, I am a fan of the first and the 4th one on the top row. I do think that having the blue shades makes the building blend in better. It's like the skies, we have these really big blue and open skies, but I'm also understanding to the fact that the color scheme that's currently on there is like is kind of historic in its own right for being there since the early 90s. So
It's definitely iconic, I would
Yeah.
say. It's an important part of I mean, most people who are living, it's the only way that they would remember the building, I think.
Mhm.
So that
Okay.
carries.
yeah, I think it does make the building stand out in a way of like, oh yeah, that's the Tucson house and wayfinding, which is important in its own right to be able to identify it.
Mhm.
But if you're looking more from an aspect of like, how do we make this blend in and not seem like such a big building, then option number 4, I think seems best, but it just depends on what way you're approaching it.
Right. Good question, though. Okay, did you have other comments, Ricky?
No,
Okay, Jan?
I think my questions have been answered. I have just a really totally minor point outside our area. I looked at the plans when I first looked at them. I was trying to get oriented. I was pretty sure I knew which way I was looking. But on the plan set, I couldn't find a north arrow, and maybe it was like just looking.
I think
past.
I think you're right, is that the pieces that we maybe have not included don't have a north arrow, but I will double check that with our
I mean,
plan.
it's, yeah,
Usually it lives in.
at some point, but not for us, but thank you. I
Okay,
think my other questions have been answered. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. They're both pertaining to the balconies.
Yes.
On the shared balcony, it looks like there's some sort of division between the 2 sides of that. Can you describe what that is, or is that just a graphic thing?
I would love to describe what that is, because it has been a major issue for us. And so this shared balcony does have doors. These are doors, but these doors will be locked and to be used only by property management. So the residents still have the same balcony that everyone else has. But there are a wide variety of security and privacy issues related specifically to the inclusion of a shared balcony. And so we had discussed a number of different options for this, including this element, which in no case would extend above the 42 inches. This is still included here, even though there'd be no vista between units potentially, purely just as a sort of a feeling of division for that. And so I would say that this is sort of a minor element that could be deleted if preferred, as it is not really dividing space that is usable by residents.
Okay, so they don't have access to that shared balcony.
Not to this shared.
Okay, okay. Then my second question is kind of tying into that. I see you're doing the heat pump units on, it looks like every balcony.
Correct.
I'm assuming that's a change, and that the building was fed by a central ducted system prior to this.
The way that the building is currently set up, there is a pair of cooling towers on the top of this adjacent commercial building here. And it is a 2-pipe hydronic system that supplies to inside, which are sort of mini splits effectively that run off of the coolant, or excuse me, the refrigerant that is pumped around. So those are currently at this same location. So right now the room is supplied from this single unit that's right here. And so we are taking advantage of the existing location of those hydronic and condensate lines for these units.
Okay, I see. So there are existing like fan coil type units, but they're interior to the building. They're not exterior at the moment.
Yeah, the
Okay.
exterior component is new, and the sort of mitigation for that is that it is concealed behind this opaque or mostly opaque screen.
Okay. I get why you're doing it. I don't love it. I think it makes the balcony a little less enjoyable, but maybe on the ones where you're doing the blocked off balcony, you could move those units into that inaccessible space and at least free up some of those. I don't know, just a suggestion there, but Is
Yeah.
is there a reason you didn't pursue like an indoor units? Because those are
Yes, the indoor units unfortunately were impractical as a result of two factors, energy efficiency, but then also the VTAC type units. So the typical condition, this is what you're seeing right here is actually a pretty atypical condition for the floor plan. Let me kind of zoom over to that. So in general, those units live in extremely close proximity. This corner lives in extremely close proximity to this edge right here. And the VTAC type units, which would live exclusively inside, would end up in a negative cycle of there's not enough clearance on either side of this for it to operate correctly, and it would end up sort of drinking in its own exhaust air, and overheating was the problem that we could not get a warranty on a purely inside unit.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Joel?
My question, well, I have two questions. One, you referred quite a few times early in the presentation about an entire change of glazing. I'm not sure I understand that. What was that event again?
Sure. So in 1997, so let's pretend that this plan is the 1997 plan. The original design of the building was that this entire run right here was floor to ceiling glazing. And so from wall to wall with a slider in the center of it. And so that was removed in its entirety in 1997 in favor of this wall, which is the wall that's going to remain, which is an EFIS on a 4-inch stud, insulated EFIS, which I guess is redundant, with the slider. And so that predated the nomination of the building, sort of that particular snapshot.
So you have two short walls that are now solid instead of glazed.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Yep.
And then second thing, I'm not sure it's for you, but it's just a general. I'm not sure of the standard we're using to review this. Can somebody, Terry, fill me in, or what the standard is again? We're using to review this.
Well, we're using the Secretary standards,
Okay.
and we're using the historic, well, for this, we're using the Secretary's rehabilitation standards.
Okay. All right. Good. I thought it was different, but it's okay.
Yeah, and so it's not, there's no historic district design guidelines or anything like that. It's basically, the Secretary standards for rehabilitation.
Compatibility. Okay, and all that stuff. Okay, good. Perfect. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Terry, I did think of one more question.
Sure.
So
Go ahead.
it was mentioned in the last presentation, which was the use of the 17th floor, which I think
Sure.
right now wasn't used because of weight issues. Is that something that's going to be fixed, but that floor is usable?
Yes. And so here's a current vista onto the 17th floor, which is, this is probably not exactly the correct term, but for all intents and purposes, condemned from use as a result of a structural issue relating to overloading with stored materials. And so here's another view out. And then here is a vista of our plan for this, which is to restore this to use as a resident amenity space with a variety of different uses within. So some enclosed rooms sort of in the location where this enclosed rooms existed before, acoustical, sort of a low wall to divide this up into an area that can be used for movie watching, and then also for just sort of general socialization, game night, that type of stuff. So yes, fully restored. And so in order to do that, just I'll leave it on a vista of what it will actually look like now to look through it once the glass is cleared up. We're installing an extensive network of steel beams underneath the floor in order to bring it back into 100 PSF capacity.
Mm-hmm. So Charles, you could make that into units, but instead, because it would be structurally sound, but Instead, you're making the amenity space.
Correct. We are essentially restoring it to an amenity space, which was originally the configuration of this. So when the building was first opened, although we have only tangential evidence thereof, no photographic evidence, not for lack of trying. This was a restaurant or cafe at this space. And over here, there is prep. You can see where the kitchen was installed. We actually had a public meeting where we did a call to everyone, and it went out in the ward letters looking for imagery of the building. We were hoping that somebody would have, their grandmother took a picture up here once upon a time, but unfortunately none of that type of information came out of the woodwork as a result of that meeting. And we've been to the University Special Collections, which has a extensive amount of images from throughout history, and we were able to find a lot of good images, some of which you see up here, but unfortunately none of that. But I guess all of that is to say that spiritually, we want this to reflect the original design intent of the building and have this be an amenity space for the people who live there.
Okay, thank you. Joel, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. So everyone's had a chance to ask their questions, right? Or did I miss someone? No, I don't think I did.
I'm sorry. If I could interrupt for just a second and just make a statement about the number of units, which is to say a couple times I've heard like a question about the reduction of units come up. And so I just want to clarify that we are reducing units intentionally. We are not seeking spaces to include additional units. As part of the choice neighborhood implementation, every unit reduction will be replaced by another unit that we have or are building. So we are not net losing units in the city's profile. We're just reducing units in this building quite intentionally.
Well, you will have fewer units, but some will be bigger. The ones
we're having fewer units in this building, but we are not reducing the total number of available units in the city. For every unit we lose here, we have to replace it somewhere else by HUD. So we will be replacing every unit that is reduced here.
Yeah, well, my question was it had nothing to do with, negative connotation regarding reduction of units. So I don't know what the others were, but
yeah,
it's not a worry. But thank you for that clarification. Okay, commissioners, let's talk about what a motion might look like. Is there anything you want to call out, or are you satisfied with the presentation? Do you want to bring anything up? Who's willing to possibly make a motion and talk it through beforehand? Because we need to move forward. We've been on this almost an hour and 15 minutes.
It doesn't seem like anybody wants to has changes to the plans.
No, I'm satisfied. I think the color thing will sort it out, so I will hold my tongue on that.
Yeah, I think it's as presented. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers to make the motion. I don't have the.
Well, other folks do. That's okay, Joel. Yeah. Okay. So what about everyone else? Is there anything you want to call out? It's a very comprehensive presentation in my mind.
It feels like our questions were addressed and they're going to be dealt with in the plans if there are still outstanding items.
Right.
I don't have anything. I'm okay making a motion. I just want to make sure, Andrew, you don't have anything that you would want called out in a motion specifically?
No, I mean, I'd like to see the units move to the unoccupied balconies where possible, but I don't know that that's a historic item, so we don't need to put it in the motion.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting suggestion. I will see if I'm trying to think if it would have a technical feasibility issue, but I'll talk to our mechanical about it for sure.
Well, thank you. Okay, so who'll be making the motion?
I can make it. It's just as presented then.
Right.
Okay. So motion for on the matter of, and I'm not looking at the right one. Okay, SD-0524-00047, 1475 North Oracle Road, motion to approve as presented.
A whole second.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got Jan, sorry, just a hair in front of you, Andrew. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry says aye. Andrew,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Jan,
I,
Ricky.
I,
Okay, it passes 5-0, and thank you, Andrew, and also Zoe for that great presentation, very thorough, and good luck with the project. And you know, maybe Jody, when you learn what the color decision is, you can let us know. It might be in the paper too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your time on this.
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 4 then, we'll go back to the agenda, is public and institutional use in a development zone discussion. So 4A is discussion on the use of public and institutional buildings as compared to properties in development zones. Do we have an update on this today, Jody?
Sabina is not here.
Okay.
And so I think that we want to once again trail this until we have her, at least then everybody can discuss it.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Okay, item 5 is task force on inclusivity report recommendations. 5A is discussion of best practices for naming of city and county owned physical assets. I would like to try to, I don't know what it's going to look like later in June, Jody, for finally getting this presented and stuff. And, you know, we wouldn't want to have many cases on the day we do it, right?
Well, we have capstone coming up probably fairly quickly. So I know you want to have that all on one day. And then I have some other stuff coming up from the other districts, so maybe shoot for July.
Yeah, I think July's fine. So Ricky, it's basically you and I working on it, but I don't think it's going to take, the retooling won't take that long, and I'm not sure it'll take hours and hours of discussion on plans review if you have it ahead of time. So anyway, so I don't have a report on that. And then item 6 is current issues for information discussion. 6A is minor reviews. What do you have for us, Michael?
Madam Chair, I think we have been busy this time. We're busy with weekly. It's been a lot of review. So I started with the review at 707 East First Street, West University. That one was for solar panel.
that one was just approved. There's nothing special about it.
And then we go to 330 South Scott Avenue for the Temple of New Zealand Art for drawers. Maybe this will be key again.
Yeah, so the 330 South Scott with the Temple Avenue or the Temple of Music and Art, they are like, it's temporary, but it's for 3 years, replacing the doors. So they're wooden doors, but they're not gonna have exactly all the same features as the current doors do because they just don't make the equipment to be able to do that, since the doors were created in the early 1900s. So they're replacing them with these doors, sending the original doors out to get repaired, and hopefully within the next 3 years, replacing the original doors to the building. So that was,
Yeah.
so just your review was of both the temporary doors and the final doors to be.
not the final doors, well, initially
The concept
they were presenting it as like these doors were going in, but then I asked, and John Burr also brought up what's happening with the original doors.
Yeah.
And they did mention we do want to reinstall them. They had the money to create these doors now, that cost them like about $50,000, so they're trying to get more money to they have to send it to a guy on the East Coast. So they're trying to get more money to refurbish the original doors and install that within 3 years.
So that's kind of an in-kind. They're not really- Okay.
But to be clear, which says doors, it's 5 pairs.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so that's a lot. So
Okay.
Michael, is there another one that,
Yes, Madam Chair, there was one at 2900 North Great Road, which is a 4-low pad. That one was for the restroom and the.
Oh, yes, yeah, so that one, was approved, they're adding in that Fort Lowell Park over there. Well, they're fixing the restrooms up and replacing some of the doors and adding some lights, so that it's not a safety hazard. And they were not able to make the currently existing bathrooms ADA accessible, but there is a mechanical room in there that they're converting to be the ADA restroom there. Which is a really neat thing to see, and then replacing the sidewalk, so the sidewalk meets ADA standards as well.
And then we
Okay.
have the one at 531 North 4th Avenue. This one is an IRD project, which is a change of use.
Yes, so that is the, now I don't remember the name, the Boca Tacos, they requested a change of use, they own that whole building, but part of the building they've been using as a storefront. They're converting that storefront into like a sit-down, more formal restaurant eating space. So that was what the change of use was for. And they did need to use the IID for that in order to meet the parking requirements, because otherwise they would not meet that.
Were there external changes?
No external
So
changes.
where,
Because it's an
Change of
IID,
use,
yeah, IID triggers us.
even if it's not external?
Yeah, we've done, and
Okay,
so we've done, change of use before.
okay.
And we have another one coming too. And so instead of doing that, I think in the past we did it as a full review, but that's just stupid. So I made it a minor review, cause it's literally, there's no exterior changes, it's
And
like.
they're not even doing any like interior construction, they're literally taking out the printer and putting in labels.
Yeah.
And
Well,
last
for that.
week was 350 South Convent, this one was carried forward.
Yeah, so 350 South Convent was postponed. The options for us really it's in the barrio, it's a barrio viejo, and he replaced his door and he did not meet he didn't look within the contributing area that he was supposed to and the references that he presented, and he cited 2 non-contributing buildings as a reason for why his contributing building should have a different door. So Grace and I were not going to approve it. What we did decide was he can go back and try to rework it so that it would meet more of the standards of the house. He was very upset because he spent a lot of money on the store. So a possible option that we did give him for that, it's a solid metal door, or it's not solid metal, it's a hollow door that's steel, but he suggested if he could get wood veneer, if that's something that we would look at approving. And Grace and I said it would depend on the design, but we'd be open to meeting that as long as it would have the condition that it does not set a precedent. So we will wait for that to come back. He's gonna figure out the feasibility of that, because he does not want to buy a brand new door.
And the last one, which was on site, I did this with Joy, and 505 East 5th Street for a retaining wall.
Joel, unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. 505 East Fifth, there's a retaining wall. Looks to be the original wall of the house, but it's falling over. It's basically cracking on the east end of the wall. It's cracking, so it's falling over. And so they've got to, in order to shore it up, they're gonna essentially build a new wall that'll look exactly like the old one. And we approved that. And also, while we were there, we saw that on the east side of the stairways up to the house, there was also a piece of wall that was bulging out. And so they're going to make a game time decision whether that needs to be reconstructed or simply or leave it alone, depending on its structural integrity as they're doing the wall. And so we left that up to the homeowner to make that game time decision on the east side of the wall.
And then we end the minor reviews that we have done within this period. I do not have any coming up, but I will ask for assistance when they are ready.
Okay, that was a busy time. Okay, how about 6B appeals?
You don't have any at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, item 6C, zoning violations.
We are continuing to work with Rick Sadate on any violations that are out there. Some of them will be full reviews and some of them will be minor.
Okay, item 6D, review process issues.
I had a question. I
Go
might
ahead.
be triggered by, the project that Rick mentioned. Work without permits and people spending a lot of money. I don't know if you remember that, kind of grand house on Sixth. It's, I think it's close to the Baptist church or the big church. It's near Mr. Car Wash. It's
620 North Sixth Avenue.
no, yeah, sorry, Sixth Avenue had a kind of peculiar circular,
Oh.
semicircular balcony.
Mhm.
And, you know, he spent a lot of money on, yes,
Yes.
his railings and everything, and we approved it with the condition that he kind of take them down and tone it down to a more neutral looking top, you know, nothing's been done, and I just wondered kind of what we do with those, and does he have a time frame?
So on that one, he actually has gone to court on that one.
No,
He had been going to court.
so that's not an appeal, he just went to court, so we don't hear about it.
Well, he's past the appeal period.
Right, so.
I did meet with them.
Our projects go to court,
Well,
I mean, if
it's not us who
No,
take
no.
them to court.
I know,
It's code enforcement that takes them to court.
Right, but it would be
And we're not
just-
always aware of when they go to court.
So he didn't start the court process, it was code enforcement that did?
Code enforcement, so.
Yeah, it's unusual.
So basically, not really, because code enforcement, their whole point is they want you to get a permit.
Yeah.
And we frequently tell people, hey, our process is not quick. You need to be conversing with code enforcement and let them know that you talked to us, that you got your plans in, that you got blah, blah, blah. So code enforcement knows what's going on. Because if you're silent with code enforcement just assumes, hey,
So
you're not doing anything.
Took him to court for not getting a permit,
Uh-huh.
and so now he's saying, is he putting it back on historic or?
No, he got his approval. I met with him and his wife. Well, I got summoned to court. And then after that, and discussed our process with the court and then met with them. And they had some questions about what to do. So I can have Rick check back on it, Rick Saldate, we can have him check back on, but I think there was a court date sometime in May. He had to go back and kind of report what's what, don't quote me on the
Okay.
month, but we can have Rick check back, but typically, you know, it is, we do our process,
Yeah.
you know, it's up to them.
Yeah.
Code keeps it open, I mean, code is looking for them to, he hasn't resubmitted for his
Okay,
plans.
so once the decision letter goes out, there is something besides us just happening to stumble on it, that keeps him from one or the other.
Yeah, so once the decision letter is issued, they're basically, the way I see it is you're in a permit, you do historic, it's a slight detour, and then you come back into a permit. So right now, he's back in his permit, so he has to revise his plans per the conditions noted in the decision letter. At this point, he has not submitted any revised plans. So code enforcement is also watching this to see if he's submitted revised plans.
Okay.
And so when he goes back to court, they'll ask, hey, what's going on? And he'll say, oh, this is what we're doing. But we discussed it back and forth and this is why I know that Iris would be asking about it. He understands what he needs to do to the posts. And, you know, they actually got some more information on the door. So that may come back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay, well, thank you.
it's moving forward, just not as quick as you want it to.
I'm just curious. Drive by it, walk by it.
Okay, anybody else have an issue they'd like to raise? Okay. Item 7 is summary of public comments. Were any received by the deadline?
We did not receive any.
Great, thank you. Item 8, future agenda items for upcoming meetings.
So we do, as I just noted, have capstone coming up. We have about 3 projects that'll be coming from West University. They were just heard earlier this week. And just before the meeting, actually, we were talking about the new ADU law that came into being. Jan would like to have that on a future agenda item and for not only PRS, but for the full commission to kind of discuss what that could potentially mean.
You know, I mean, there's 2, there's the ADU, which was more controversial, and then there's, at least from, to hear what most of the cities had to say who already had ADU regs in place, but then the other one that's about, I think development on undeveloped lots. Anyway, they're kind of companion bills, but it would be good to know for both of them, kind of to what extent, if any, they affect us.
Well, if you, Jan, you know, I think you should work with Jody on which, or with the group, like, would it be more helpful to have a discussion in PRS first and then update the commission on it as part of the plans review item or a separate item? Or, you know, or do you want someone to present on it to the full commission?
I think so. Jody said it wasn't really her bailiwick, so I don't know if it's Dan Bursick or if it's higher up the food chain.
There was some chats and teams going around after it got approved. And I think, you know, everybody at the city is, probably with the exception of this legal department,
Sure.
is still kind of ferreting out what this means to us. There will likely have to be a code update associated with it. The code update, they give you a timeline, so I mean, it's, you know, like, this has to go through a process, so there's still a couple of years before it will actually see the light of code updates and the mayor council and stuff like that. But I think it is very fresh for us and everybody, so it's still something everybody's trying to ferret out.
I think once you guys know, once the city kind of knows what it is and what you're thinking in terms of process, it would just be nice to even have just a short update on both bills.
Okay, so it's not something you're thinking of, like, you know, this month or next month, you're thinking of once we get it figured out.
Well, no, you could take forever to figure it out. I mean, I'm talking.
We have a code, we have a deadline
Right.
given by
Right.
that state, so I mean, it's not gonna take forever for us to figure
But
it out.
even saying high level, here's what's going on. Here's what we're thinking about our process, you know, here's the timeline, here's what we're thinking. So at least a high level.
So then in the next
Yes.
month, just like an overview.
So
of
we
the
don't
next
each
steps, right?
have to go look at it and make our own interpretation. So it's House Bill 2720 and House Bill 2721.
No, I'm just taking notes on here. Yeah, so
So I'm not asking, so somebody, I'm guessing that somebody in planning is following and it can talk at a high level about where things are now and what the city at least would, you know, we're not committing on whatever, but you know.
so do you want it at PRS or do you want it at
Well,
the
it
full
sounds like
commission?
from what Terry's saying, maybe starting here and just seeing.
Well, and just, and the thing is that our meetings could easily go up to 2 hours or more for full commission items
yeah.
to in.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think we could sort of learn as Jody learns and then come up with, I mean, I think it's best to present to the whole commission, like what these new House bills mean. You know what I mean? Like, but what we need to understand it on PRS, what it means, rather than just make Jody tell the whole commission or whoever she finds, don't you think? I mean, let's try it this way and see, and then update.
Do you guys have a timeline already when you have to complete this, or you're still waiting for that?
No, I don't think they, I mean, it like literally just
Yeah, it just
happened.
happened like this week. She signed it this week.
Yeah, so they were like talking about it.
Maybe she wants, maybe she wants.
And I just remember the chats, I saw the chats coming up, I think it was yesterday or the day before. And they And then Corin gave some dates based on the bill saying, you know, we had like till 2026 or something like that. But I could be making,
Yeah.
that year up, don't,
No would be.
But something that's just like the high level for dummies, you know, here's what it does, here's our timeline. You'll be hearing more later or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And so other cases, Jody, besides Capstone, the 3 in West University and this new law?
and the capstone ones, yes.
Yeah,
We have
Yep.
until January 1st, 2025 to adopt the ADU rules until January 1st, 2026 to adopt the missing middle housing regulations.
One of those is so
Pretty
soon.
soon, yeah, that's the ADU one, which
Well,
was
and
the most,
we already have some ADU regulations.
enough that say you can do 2 or 3 units. And so, I mean, it's a change for sure. And the biggest thing that I'm aware of, but again, all I've read is some newspaper and some planning stuff, is that the state is essentially preempting local review, so that's a big deal for historic, so that's.
Yeah, so then there's just a lot of chats about it. I didn't see anything regarding historic districts, that was my first thought, and they indicate that ADUs can be as close as 5-foot setback. It can be the same height as the single family residential zoning allows, i.e. 2-story. That was
And there, you can't have a requirement of consistency with existing, so I'm just saying, there are things that. Pretty big things that. I don't know whether it moves us or needs us or.
And then then there were people talking about fire separation requirements and stuff like that, so I mean, we're still,
Yeah, no, I get it,
oh, yeah.
but like Ricky said, I mean, first of next year is not that far away.
Yeah.
And that's the one that had at least had all this, and most of the cities over 75,000, the most exercise, so.
Yeah. So I can work on getting something,
Thank you.
probably not, I mean, I'll work it into what we got. So it probably won't be in the next meeting, but get somebody to discuss.
Yeah.
okay, so any other cases, or these so Joel will have to recuse on Capstone, right?
Correct.
And then what about the West University ones?
No,
No?
Well, I
Okay,
mean, to
You
be
know-
clear, there's Capstone and then there's West University ones. So yes, yes, Capstone, but the other random West University ones, no.
got it, that's what I understood. Okay, so my issue is that I have an event, unfortunately, that I can't get out of on June 13th, that's our next meeting. So we would need to have, if I couldn't be there, we would need someone to chair and 4 people except Joel for that one. I mean, we'd have to be covered if Capstone is next time, right? So maybe we should talk about that, Jody, and we should find out. So Ricky and Jan, do you feel you can be there next time, and Andrew and Joel?
I can't commit, I will if I can, but as I mentioned, there's some hovering doctors things that.
Right, so,
Yeah, I can make it, I just can't be in person that week.
okay, but you could chair if you could chair, or we could ask Savannah or whatever, and, all right, so Jody, maybe you find out sooner than later, because it might affect your agenda preparation, I don't know.
Yeah, and then, not that you guys care, but June 27th, I will not be here.
Oh,
We
are-
care, we
oh,
miss
do we
you.
have to reschedule that one because we'll all be at SHPO? Oh,
I will
well,
be at SHPO.
I will be there.
You're not going to the preservation conference?
Jan's not, I am, and so is Jody.
I'm not going.
Oh, you're not going?
No,
I thought you just said. you were-
no, I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna be on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but Michael,
That's good.
at the meeting in Prescott? Michael?
Michael's not going either. The city, because we just had it in this fiscal year, the city is not gonna send us to a conference, the same conference in the same fiscal year.
Fair.
It's kind of weird they changed it to June, but whatever, I know, they're putting it back in June.
So what if a bunch of us are going and we can't?
Um,
Don't we have to move it to the 20th?
We can change the date.
Yeah, a week earlier is the 20th, but a week later is the 4th of July.
Yeah, forget that one, 4th of July. I mean, let's do the,
The
maybe we
20th?
do the 20th. You think, so we do two, you do 13th and 20th?
We can, I'll send out calendar invites for it. So who's all available? You're tentative, Jan.
Still tentative.
I'm available.
You're available. Terry, you're available?
I'm available on the 20th, but not the 13th.
Okay, and what about Andrew and Joel? What, are you guys available on the 20th?
Yes, I'm available on the 20th.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking at my calendar, but I think so.
Yeah, so you would just do the 13th and the 20th, and then we'd have the 27th off.
Yes. You would, well, or, doing the conference or whatever.
Yeah.
Here.
All right.
Yes, I get to take vacations, okay?
Okay, any other future agenda items? Are we good to go here?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, so we are adjourned at 2:41, and thanks everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Wait, what am I doing?
Yeah.
No. On the wrong one, that's fine. This one. Let's go.